Boy, my name's Doug Turner. I'm running for governor. How many people here have been to one of the Trump rallies in the last few years? Some people. So this is quite a production here. And I was at a Bernalillo County Republican Party meeting, and someone said, how are we going to get people excited about this election this year? Because one of the problems we have as Republicans in New Mexico is that we don't turn out. We're kind of beat up. We don't feel excited about what our opportunities are in the state. And I have been around the state now for 9 weeks. This is the 9th week of my campaign. But I have been to those Trump rallies. And you go to those rallies and you feel like a rock star, right? I mean, it is electric. You get goosebumps. The president's plane pulls up and they've got the Rolling Stones playing. And I walked in here today and I said, this is where we're going with the Republican Party, because this is awesome. I mean, this is really awesome. So, Led, I think you are at least one of the engineers of this.
Yep.
Well, really great, really great. I'm from Albuquerque originally. I was born and raised in New Mexico. I've got 3 kids. I have my 12-year-old daughter, Eleanor, in tow today. She's probably not. I told her it was going to be fun, and she kind of rolled her eyes. I got into this race, as I said, 9 weeks ago. I was not thinking about running. I'm a small businessman. I'm a father of 3. And I looked at our state. I looked at, the folks that we had running, and certainly the Democrats who are running right now, and I was afraid. I don't need this job. I don't. And, I don't believe in people entering politics and then basically staying there for their entire lives. And Pat, I'm not talking to you about you. My brother ran and his daughter ran his first race. I believe people need to, it's a civic duty. You get up, you show up. Showing up is half of it. You do the work that you commit to do. You don't change your values. You stick to it, you get it done, and then you go home. And you make room for somebody else. And so, I threw my hat in, and it's been like a rocket ship. The support that the campaign has had in the last 9 weeks is pretty unbelievable. I managed to get my petitions in 9 days, which I think is a record. Managed to get through the convention, and anyone who's been through a Republican Party convention, it's like walking through fire in a gasoline suit. It's just, it's boom, boom, boom. People tell you they love you, but they really don't, that kind of thing. And we've got our first finance report that'll be submitted on Monday, and I think we'll report well over $500,000 in cash raised in hand, which is what Republicans are going to need in the general election. This is going to be a $10 million election against Deb Haaland. $10 million. She's already raised $10 million. So the kind of excitement that we have here, the kind of people who really believe in what Republican Party values mean to this state, and the kind of people who are willing to stick with those values are what we need to win in November. So what are the big issues that are facing the state? I mean, you heard from some of them. I could talk about that FEMA disaster all day long, Martin. Pat, you talked about, some of the budget issues. We have a $13 billion budget. We have an education system right now that has been failing our children since I got involved in elective politics here when I ran for Gary Johnson's races. 32 years ago, we were 50th in the nation. Fast forward through 4 administrations, each of them 8 years each, and we're still 50th in the nation. And if we want to grow our economy, like the mayor's talking about, we have to have people who can get jobs. I'm a small business person, and it's almost impossible for me to find really good people to work for my company, so we hire out of the military because they've got skills. They know how to walk and chew gum and spin plates at the same time. If we are graduating children out of our high schools who can't read, what do we expect their future is going to be like when we get into a discussion about law enforcement? And what do we expect that our economy is going to be like? We have failed generations of our children. Right now in New Mexico, 47% of our 3rd graders leave 3rd grade without knowing how to read at 3rd grade level. And then they get into 4th grade and 5th grade and 6th grade, and suddenly APS is touting how they've increased the graduation rate by 10%. But what does that mean if the kids don't have school, or don't have an education? And then where do they go? They end up dropping out of school. They end up, at a skateboard park with a handgun, and you know what happens there. I tend to believe that real fundamental things in this state cut across party lines. People say, how can you as a Republican win in a state that's controlled by Democrats? How can we do it? Well, I tend to believe that we all actually care about the same things. Republicans, Democrats, independents care about the same things. We care about our families. We care about our children. We want them to be able to go outside and play ball in the street without getting shot. We care about their education. We care about putting food on the table to feed our families. I don't believe that most people really want to be on welfare. I really don't. I am actually registered up in northern New Mexico in Taos County. And I joke with, Sadie Boyer, our county commissioner up there, that I'm the only elected Republican in Taos County. I got elected to the smallest municipality in the state 2 years ago, the village of Taos Ski Valley. And, I ran as a Republican. I had similar signs. I don't know where my signs are. They look the same. They said, I dig Doug on them. And I won. I got sued the next day by the Democratic Party in Taos County because they didn't think I should have been up there. But I kept the seat. And, I found dealing with sort of constituents that have the same issues that we're all talking about, that we're all really the same. We really are. But I also believe, that there are, big things going on in the state. The president came here, 3 times? Something like that during the election. There is no way a president who is running, if we think New Mexico is big, think about the United States, would come here so often if he didn't deeply believe that we were a conservative state at heart. We are. And that means, at least from my perspective, that we have no reason to change what we believe in at all, whether it's Second Amendment rights, life, the right to a job, something simple. We don't have to change our ideals at all to win in this state, at all. We don't have to suddenly tell one group of people one thing and another group of people another thing. Pat was just warning me, when I get elected, keep it simple, don't change what I believe in, and I have never changed what I believe in. This is a winnable race. Republicans have a chance this year. We have the worst Democratic opponent we could ever imagine. Not only is she incompetent, but she would be a disaster for New Mexico, a disaster for ag that uses water, a disaster for oil and gas that funds this state. Pat was just talking about, what $1 increase in oil does to our budgets. We're, $40 above that now? And she wants to kill that industry? She would be terrible. She has no interest in improving education. She wants to take her marching orders from the teachers' unions in New Mexico, which have been a disaster for our children and a disaster for our families. She has no interest in expanding school choice, more charter schools. Money should follow the child. No interest at all. And so what I ask you all today, because this is a great meeting. There are 3 of us running for governor. All good people. I've had a chance to meet them. We have this one massive campaign speech that I think we're all giving now because we're all together. But we have to turn out. In June, we have to turn out, and in November, we have to turn out. Because if we don't turn out, this opportunity that we have right now to win will vanish. And if we don't win in November, this crazy redistricting that Martin's dealing with and Greg Cunningham is dealing with in the South is going to last for another 10 years. We have to have a governor in the governor's office when we go through redistricting to put things right in this state. And I commit to you that I will do that. And I'll raise the $10 million. Thank you all so much for doing this. This is such an amazing event. Thank you for this cool production. I just need good theme music. I like that. Yeah. So I get 5 minutes for questions? Sheriff. This is so bright.
So local officials, I find especially law enforcement, we're under attack right now. I'm under attack from Santa Fe. I recently entered into that 287G agreement. We've got several agreements with federal agencies. We partner together. We're a rural area. We need our federal partners to help us fight crime. But Santa Fe is determined that I, as sheriff who's been elected by the people, can't enter specific agreements with the federal government. My question for you is, what do you think about that? How do you plan on supporting law enforcement, and how do we as Republicans fight back and fight Santa Fe to where local officials, the sheriff, the detention centers in southern New Mexico, we can partner with our federal partners and move forward and fight crime?
So I got a few things. First of all, much like, I view education where local school districts know what's best for their local communities, I also think local law enforcement should have the power to make those decisions on its own. Regarding the detention facilities in this sort of effort to prevent, county-owned facilities from housing, folks, waiting for ICE. During the first Trump administration, I was appointed to the New Mexico, this is a mouthful, New Mexico Advisory Board to the U.S. Human Rights Commission. There were 2 Republicans who were appointed by the president. And we had this whole hearing on this whole prison issue. And everyone else on the group were Democrats. And the advisory board came up with a decision that mirrored what the state's trying to do, which prevent that from happening. And I actually wrote the dissenting opinion to that policy. What are we going to do? Send them all to Texas? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, from an economics perspective or a law enforcement perspective. You don't have the time to drive somebody to a facility in another state. So I'm totally with you on that issue. Crime broadly. 3 weeks ago, I was walking my dogs at a park down the street from where I live, and a guy was actually shot in a drive-by, maybe 10 or 15 feet from me. I was on the phone with our Republican city councilor, Dan Lewis, and I was like, dude, I think somebody got shot. And this guy was riding a little moped. He came by, and he goes, I've been shot, and he was totally dazed, and I did not believe him. I was, and then, you could just see the blood pluming out on his sweatshirt. But I will say this, APD was there within 2 minutes, minute and a half. I mean, cordoned off the neighborhood. The fire department, EMTs were just like that. Our crime problem is not a law enforcement problem. Just like Pat was talking about, it's a judicial problem. We have judges that just kick the same people out over and over again. That needs to change, and it's going to be complicated because it's largely driven by this 2016 Bail Reform Act, which I think has been disaster for law enforcement, because you probably end up arresting the same people over and over again. So I think that needs to change, and I think it's the governor's office that can lead on that, but it's going to require the legislature. Sorry, long-winded answer, short question.
What are your ideas on encouraging the creation of wealth within our state?
Well, who likes to pay taxes? Anybody? So we have a 6% personal income tax. Texas is 0. Colorado, which I think is probably bluer than we are, is 3%. Arizona, which is why people go there and stay there, is 2.5%. I think we need to. I think there's a path that we can lower our personal income taxes, maybe to 3. And I've actually submitted a plan on that and eliminating the gross receipts tax to who's the analyst in the legislature? Rick May, for him to review. I think we need to deal with the personal income tax. I think we need to deal with the gross receipts tax, which is regressive. If you're a wealthy person, you're not really paying too much attention on that. But if you're not, that matters to you. We have almost 8% gross receipts tax in Albuquerque, which is insanity. For every $1 you're going to be, or every $100, you're going to spend $8 on taxes. So I think we have to lower our tax base. I'm not sure if it was Pat or somebody else talking about how many kids we've lost in our public school system. 7,000, I think, is what he said. We are losing people from the state. We're losing people from the state. The IRS actually released a big study that showed all the states with low income tax rates are increasing not only people who move there, but the income and economic power that they bring. And all those high tax states are losing, and we are one of them. I'm a small business person. The more that we can provide services to small business people, whether you're a food truck guy who needs help filling out your forms, those are difficult. I've tried to help people do them, or getting the kind of support that the state tends to give to these big giant unicorn companies that we think are going to save us. I think there needs to be reversed. I think that the services need to go to the small business people and let them create the wealth.
Mark Gallegos here, Curry County resident. I've been in New Mexico for about 16 years. Talking about detention, I was a warden for several different facilities. Right now, we have an issue with the lack of juvenile detention facilities in the state of New Mexico. We have, I believe, right around 23, 24 adult detention facilities. We are down now to 4 juvenile detention facilities. Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening is that the state governs the county facilities, but doesn't give any funding. So which has caused all these juvenile detention facilities to shut down, i.e. Sheriff's Department here make an arrest. They got to travel all the way down to Lee County. I was the detention director there for about 14 months, just retired. So we're putting individuals...
Gentlemen, please get to the question.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Here's a question. How are you going to assist counties to bring and bridge the gaps of correcting the juvenile detention facilities? Is that good for you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I probably needed the briefing.
You need data.
I'm be honest, I don't have enough detail on the juvenile detention facilities. That's okay. We can talk afterwards. But I do know that we certainly had more of them when Johnson was governor back in the 90s and early 2000s. And I also know that what CYFD has become effectively is a catch-all for every juvenile in the state that has a problem. The problem with that is that you've got different kinds of kids. You've got some rough kids who are legitimately dangerous people to have out there that need one set of services and in one particular environment. And then you have kids who just really, need help. Bad families, bad circumstances. And I think, the answer to your question probably comes in a full restructuring or destruction and reconstruction of CYFD. CYFD has been a shame on this state for 30 years. I mean, we have children who die in custody. We have substandard facilities. Children shouldn't be treated that way. I don't really care what circumstances you come from. Children need to be, treated respectfully with kindness. They have to have a loving environment. And to have kids sleeping on the floor of an office is shameful. So I think it's a long conversation, but that agency is a disaster. And I will give, our RAG credit. It took them long enough, but to come up with a report that actually, describes the situation as a moral failure is probably a perfect description. Perfect description. Anyway.
Would you possibly bring DOGE to New Mexico? I think our state governments, each department needs to be looked at financially.
So, I don't know about DOGE actually. I do know that there's been a proposal. Jay Block up in Sandoval County has actually had that concept, and I think he tried to present it in the last legislature. We had a $13 billion budget this year. We had, I think when Johnson was governor, maybe a $6 billion budget. Now, lots has changed. You know, we now have universal child care, which I have problems with. We have all kinds of freebies that we're giving out, but I also think with that budget growth comes insane staff growth. Now, I'm not saying we don't need competent people working for the state. We do. You know, we should have the best people we can possibly get. But we do need to find efficiencies in government, huge efficiencies in government. It's something that those of you in business are fully aware of, that you can't have 30 people if you only need 3 people to do the job. So I do think it's something that has to be looked at. Anyway, and thank you all. Please vote. Please vote. And thank you for coming. This is fabulous. Thanks.